So we'll learn further together because I haven't this. Then, yeah, just check it. We're up to page 200. So the shaila yesterday was that Rosh Hashanah is higher, which means it's koila, more pratim. It's a higher level of likus, which therefore means that it's higher in time, as he explained till now at length. That time, the maila means level. So since Rosh Shabbos is higher in level, it's also higher. It should be higher in Zman Gashmi. So why is the Shabbos only incorporates the week to come, Rosh Chodesh, a month, and Rosh Hashanah a year, and whereas Shabbos is even higher than Rosh Hashanah, as explained. Shabbos that falls on Rosh Hashanah that falls on Shabbos. That's the question right of yesterday. But the matter is as follows: the hini b'amshachas achayis ba'ilmes yes beis mini amshachas. There's two kinds of amshachas in oilmes. B'chinas chayim, there's life that animates the world, gives life to them, and then there's b'china machaya hachayim, the one who gives life to life. The Lashon in the Gemara. Like the Torah explains, Bepirush Birchas Beir Nefashis Rabbis v'Chesroinon. So we thank Hashem for creating many souls and v'Chesroinon and their lacks. Al kol ma shebrosa lachayis behem nefesh kol choy. So we go on to say, all upon that, all that you created to give them life, the nefesh of every living thing. So what does the Torah say? There's two pratim here. He starts off saying he created all living souls, many living souls, v'chesroinon. And then goes on to say, Lahachis behem nefesh kol choy. So let's see how he teaches it. Shini ber nefashis tam v'chesroinon. He created many souls, many levels, and their limitations. Koil amshachal amalis hachasoden. So here we're talking about, so we have a lack. Kusha begash means we need to eat. So God provides, we need to drink. So that's the amshachal amalis hachasoden shechasal eloy amshachazu. Without this level of amshacha, then that chsod, that shortcoming, that failure, that lack would endure and it wouldn't survive. Quoting here from the laws of tzedakah, the one has to give tzedakah to the poor, alms to the poor, but one not obligated to make them wealthy. So here, this amshacha does not exceed their limits. It fills their needs, not more. That's the first part of the bracha. So you give life to the soul of every living thing. So this is a higher level of life, which is tainuk. In other words, a person can survive without ever having any pleasure in life. It's a miserable life, but it's still a life. But tainuk is already not a survival thing. This is already an experience that goes beyond one's immediate lacks and needs. So that's the level of machaya hachayim. So it goes on. So this will answer our question. Shabbos is a hamshocha of tainuk, which is beyond the ishtalshelus altogether. The whole Seder Hazmanim is part of ishtalshelus to one degree or another. Shabbos is b'chalal hamshocha, and that's Rosh Hashanah, and that's Rosh Chodesh. But Shabbos is Gilui HaTainuk, and therefore Shemish Zeh Masher Kosa b'Shabbos Vayichul HaShemayim V'Haaretz. The Vayichul HaShemayim V'Haaretz, one of the meanings, Vayichul has many meanings, completed, but it's also expressive of he took delight in the completion of Shemayim V'Haaretz. Like a person who completes a house, so he has the tainuk. He has tainuk. Avla tainuk behelim. But in the process of building the house, the process of bayna, there is tainuk. Why is he doing it? What's motivating all this? Because he wants to have a home, which draws in a very deep place. It's not just a shelter, not just a place to be protected from the elements, a place to go to the bathroom, but his home, which is the union of tainuk, nisave. Avol, in the process of the building, which drives it all, at tainuk behelim. It's concealed. When does he have the pleasure? Only when the project is completed, the house is complete. Now, Machaya, he's got his home which is reflective of him, where he can live. So, like it was the conclusion of Bria. So, in other words, till Shabbos, Hashem created the world and sustains it every moment. But that's the burden of Shabbos v'chesroino. Then comes on Shabbos, and Shabbos is revealed in creation his delight, which is altogether higher than ishtalshelus. And that's the neshama yiseda the Gemara speaks of, that every person is granted Shabbos. Neshama is a life force. It's a whole different level of life. The weekday is about survival and function and achieving, getting to goals. Shabbos is about the moment itself. And that's the neshama yiseda. Shebechinas chaye v'yechida, not normally manifest in the person. It's beyond the structure system. Chaye v'yechida rotzen and tainuk. V'haynu shebechinas naran, meaning the levels of nefesh ruach neshama im keneged amsha. Yeah. Actually, it doesn't work if you do it. They haven't come on yet. Yeah. Yeah. So the madregas of nefesh and neshama, which are the conscious levels invested in the guf, basically nefesh is Moishe and ruach is midas and neshama is seichel. So that's keneged seder shtalshus b'chalal. That's biyah b'chalal. B'chinas neshama yiseda. But the neshama yiseda showing in b'chinas chay yechida. So the gemosam l'mayla hey ma'arich v'atik. Here he says ishtalshelus, he means even atzilus. So chay yechida corresponds to arich and atik. Nebish is rotzen, nebish is tainug. Likewise chay is rotzen, yechida is tainug. When you're not tainug, shulamayla mishtalshelus. So it's altogether higher than ishtalshelus. Meaning ishtalshelus is about performance and function. And this is the tainug of being, the tainug of knowing Hashem as He is, not for His function. That's the yin of Shabbos. And hence we'll understand why it manifests l'chuda in a way that embraces less of time, which would have been indicative, as we began the question, to be a higher level if it embraces more time. So therein lies the distinction. We're talking here about hamshacha for the purpose of sustaining and completing and nourishing even creation, but it's all mitzad the system. So this is drawn from the level of midas l'mayla, its loftiest level. 6 days of creation, the midas, Chodesh ha'elamis. Shein Azman, we explained before that it's the midas, not so much Moichin. We said that it's the midas that, relatively speaking, are divided in levels, and that's the Chodesh of Zman Lamata. The say that Amshachi is, how does it work? Nimshach Tchila B'chinas Klal. So first this whole Amshacha for Ishtalshalos comes in an all-embracing way, a general sense, Rosh Hashanah, and then Beresh Chodesh less of a Klal. V'yachar kach Nimshach B'chayis B'pratis, B'meya Chodesh B'meya Hashanah. Then the Chayis is drawn down in these individual levels of the days of the month and the days of the week. Hence, these days are K'relo the whole year, Rosh Hashanah, the whole month, Rish Chodesh. But we're all talking here about Ishtalshalos. We're talking here about Lamalis Chesreina. It's all part of the process of sustaining creation. But creation itself isn't the objective. It's in creation, in the bias, he's going to reveal his tainug and live with his soulmates. That's wherein the true essence lies. But Shabbos is altogether higher than the Ishtalshalos is done. Now the tainug shrinking, and Neshama is say the B'chinas Chaya Yechid, as we said. Alash B'chinas Zu Nimsheches U'Meira Gam B'chinas Naran. But this level is not detached from the conscious levels of Nefesh Ruach and Neshama, meaning of Seichel, Midas, and Maisa. It's connected, it illuminates it, it brings tainug there. Shazer Sheim HaShabbos Shayach L'Gimel Yomim Shelefonav L'Gimel Yomim Shelacharav. So in Halacha, there's this, it's Havdalah and other halachas. You can say Havdalah till Tuesday. So we say L'Chunaranan already on Wednesday, 3 days before. So Shabbos is Shayach to the 3 days before and the 3 days later in halacha. So these 3 days correspond to Nefesh Ruach Neshama, the system of the person. So Inyan Amshachas HaNeshama, you say the Begimel HaPchin is the Nefesh Ruach Neshama. So there is a connection to time. But what's the connection to Ishtalshalos, in other words? But the connection lies in as much that's being nimshach in the Inyan of Lamaylim Ishtalshalos, the tainug. Already from Wednesday, things start to change. And the lingering effect of Shabbos remains till Tuesday. However, Kol Yisyan Shabbos, but Shabbos itself, he Lamaylim Azman. Of course, we all know the beautiful Ayom Yom there. It spans a few days. The L'Chunaranan gets closer to Shabbos, and he sees he hasn't connected yet. Thursday night, Yilent Chassidus, and this Yid makes Shabbos a beautiful Taish of Rabbi Marash. He said in Yechidus, the Chassid. He starts off, it's L'Chunaranan Tzveilach, Shabbos is coming. But then as the days proceed, with what am I coming to Shabbos with? To finally, to the whole Aveda, especially Thursday night. There's a famous story of Zalman Moishe Yitzchaki, the legendary chassid. Yeah, we should share stories about him. There aren't a whole lot. Considerable. He was a Mendel Futafas as Mashpia, and he was a sheikhet, and he was renowned. He was a very emissive person, very emissive, and totally intolerant of any pretense of posturing of piety, of anything that wasn't absolutely sincere. He just couldn't tolerate. Totally emes. His Verbrengens were legendary. He passed away in Etzisol in 1953. There's a picture of him, one picture, maybe two. Gabriel, to tell stories of him, remembers him well. His Verbrengens. Just to say about him two things that are most extraordinary. Number one, that the Fidiger Rebbe said that a vod from Zalman Moishe is repeated in Beis Harav. Not every vod that the Chassid says is repeated in the Rebbe's household, but here's a vod that he said is repeated. And the second thing is the Rebbe wrote on his Matzeva or Nalet Harav HaTzadik, after he passed away. Most unusual. Just by the way, anybody knows here, Olav Shalom, David Brin? Did you know David Brin from Miami? He was a boy that we were Mekarev, and we were Bachrim in Yeshiva. Mekarev. His father was a rabbi, became a conservative rabbi. Anyway, they brought on him. He passed away. He was born with a serious heart condition. As a shliach, they brought on him a tzaddik. Handwritten. There's a book. They made a book on him also. It's like the story of David Brin. Somebody made a book on him, his life. He was always mamish on the Shamba, completely different level. Anyway, it's two people that I know that Rebbe wrote tzaddik on. It was Moishe Yitzchaki and this David Brin from Miami. Yeah, so the Maisa with him is that, so he was Yechidus by the Frierdiker Rebbe, and he told the Frierdiker, the Rebbe, his whole Avodah is in shambles. He's exhausted from his Avodah, and he was a shoichet, and I think he was a teacher. No, Gashmias, Pasha Gashmias. Physically exhausted, and it comes Thursday night, so he has no poshet, no koyach, and therefore Shabbos, what is all Shabbos? It's all relative, his level of avodah. There's more detail that I'm missing, but the Nekudas Rebbe told him that he should learn Chassidus. He has to learn Chassidus a whole Thursday night. So the first 3 hours will be very difficult. But if you persist, then it's going to go. He couldn't keep his eyes open altogether Thursday night. So they were saying he would just collapse at the end of the week. This is during the difficult times in Russia to be a sheikhet, so he had to travel. People should have chicken for Shabbos. So the first 3 hours will be very difficult, but then it's going to go. And that's what he did. Okay, so Be'ez Hashem, the Neder will tell stories of Zalman Moishe and show you a picture of him. Pardon?
I think the first 5 minutes.
Yeah. Again, to remember, he couldn't keep his eyes open. That was the point. He sat by the sefer and he just fell asleep. His Farbrengens were legendary. I'm going to tantalize you. By his Farbrengens, he used very raw language. Very raw language. He used to take mashkin. It wasn't those days. Big Chassidim. So the story goes, once a bocher, and it's not the bocher once came, I don't know where this was. It was in Russia, Neville, but it's been Shabbos with him. And he was also there by the Farbrengen, and the Chassidim were very worried that he's been completely turned off. Hearing he used. So I'll tell you what happened at the end. When they asked him how was Shabbos, and they gingerly asked him that the Farbrengen, and his response is quite amusing, quite funny. So tantalizing you with that story, and God will share that story. Okay, Bli Neder. All right. So what are we saying here? So Shabbos. So Shabbos is close, and Shabbos l'maylim azman. Shezeu shalachri kol Shabbos oimrim mayem yem edition. Why is it this way? That we the cycle every week we start. This is the first day, the second day, the third day. Why not linear? Just count the days. Find the system since creation. Years are counted that way. Months also not, but the main shaila is on Shabbos. Because it's the stuff of the week. So the answer is rather, why do we keep on starting again anew each week? Hari b'Shabbos anasa shem shini bazman. Mainly Reish Chodesh, there's a shinoi, the moon physically, there's a new cycle, it's not the cycle again. But Shabbos, there's no shinoi. There's not a change in the week, nor in the year. So the real Shabbos is on Shabbos. There's no change, Pashat, in the Teva Habriya. Because time is cancelled every Shabbos. Because Shabbos is, therefore it starts all over again. And therefore each Shabbos, each Sunday we start time again rooted in the level it's hidden time. Therefore every Sunday is Yom Rishon. And that's why the man didn't come down on Shabbos. Going to explain. The Rikar Amshocha, and the Chodesh of the man is Shabbos. It's from Shabbos, it's from the Zohar, Medrash. So it's from Shabbos. That's why those that didn't keep Shabbos, it rotted, it became wormy. Because by observing Shabbos, that was the Amshocha, the panos of the man for the week to come. So from Shabbos the manna comes, but on Shabbos itself it doesn't. So what's the inyan? Sheyesh b'china shiyura the tola the bedulcha shebe'osir lachis amesim. This is the dew, this crystal dew that came together with the man, with which Hashem will revive the dead in the future, says the Zohar. Va'man in itself, shiyura means the leftover. So the man itself is the tola the bedulcha atzmai. The man itself is this dew, this crystal, this precious dew. This is the tainuk which is hiding in ishtalshalos. That's what man is. Vinyan yid is a man who. So what's the yirida? Hamshachas b'chinas hatainuk sh'amayim ishtalshalos lamata b'chinas azman, drawing it down into time. V'lachim b'Shabbos atzmai, Shabbos itself. Liyoyis ilamayim ishtalshalos amayim azman. It itself is the pure in a tainug. Like shaykh ben yidid saman lemata. It's not shaykh the descent of the man. Mashenkin amshocha saman al kol yimei hashavuah miyoyim haShabbos. On the other hand, the whole amshocha comes from Shabbos and proceeds from there. Fishu b'chinas tainug. So therefore, that's the effect that Shabbos has on the weekday, on ishtalshalos, that the man throughout the week is manifested, but where's the Chodesh? The Chodesh is Shabbos itself, the pure tainuk. We're clear? So that answers why the week starts all over again from there. That answers why it's only tenuously, as it were, on some level, connected to Zman. It isn't integral to Zman. Rosh Hashanah is part of Zman. Rosh Chodesh is part of Zman. The klal of Zman, on these relative levels, a bigger klal, a smaller klal. Shabbos is not a klal of Zman. Shabbos is legambri higher than ishtalshalos. But the whole point is the amshocha of l'hachis behem nefesh kol choy, the amshocha of machaya chayin, the amshocha of tainug in Zman. So it's the union of man is tainug aliki. Karasal Shabbos oinig, heavenly bread. So the man is a Shabbos dike inyan, but it's amshocha. It doesn't come down into the world on Shabbos, because on Shabbos we're lifted to the place of the tainug itself. It's the ascent. We're absorbed within the likus on Shabbos. So this explains. But the rest of the week, it's manifested. That's the leftover, the shiura of the tola, the bedulcha that is drawn down in the week, and specifically the 3 days before and the 3 days later. Of course, the rest of the week as well, because these 3 days are the primary midas. Chesed, Gvur, Tiferes, it branches out to the rest of the week as well. But the Kamshach is in these 3 days. Yeah, we're kind of clear. Let's go a little bit further. Okay. So all this is to explain the paradox, the tension of v'nifkadata, you'll be remembered, you're present, ki yipaket, because you're not present. And the very same words convey these opposite meanings, obviously conveying the inyan that it's one nakud, that adrab, it's through the bittul that there is the hamshach. And the bittul is erev, Rosh Chodesh, and the new hamshach is Rosh Chodesh. So now we're going to answer all this. So we just said hamshach the Rosh Chodesh. Hamshach sachai the Seder Shtalshalus. So Rosh Chodesh we said, which is why Shabbos is higher, is the chayis of Seder Shtalshalus for that month. B'chinas hazman. I say the hamshach zuhi. So the Seder of this hamshach is agili bo la'achrei kdimus ha'helem. So the gili can only come after a moment of removal of concealment. Because shekolos in hazman b'chinas ratzav v'shuv. As we explained, zman is ratzav v'shuv, the moment that is present departs. That's the ratzoi, and then there's a new moment that's drawn, a new moment in time. That's the shuv. And therefore the new hamshach, the new zman has to only come only after the previous moment, as it were, darge has given way, as we learned previously, that from chachma to go to bin, and certainly from the seichel to midas, the new level cannot emerge as long as we are still remaining at the level previous. In the olam ha-seichel, the midas, the objective midas, can't emerge in the full expression. So it has to be the of what ki yipoket, and then benifkadata. V'hainu shebetchilat tzarich li is habitul b'bchinas ha-malchus. He said earlier that all of the zmanim are drawn through malchus. It's true, it's all the midas, but as they are filtered and drawn through malchus, that's where zman begins to emerge. Da ziras garmo, it has to make itself small. This is a reference, if I'm not mistaken, also to the levana. Hashem tells the levana to diminish itself. So there has to be the bittul in malchus itself. Let's see what that means. So it's the bittul that will allow for the hamshach of zah. Vinyan zeh gufa sham malchus tiye bittul da ziras garmo. And this itself, that malchus should diminish itself. It's zah that gives this kayach, this inspiration, for malchus to be to mevatel itself, to be a true makabel. Let's see. So it's Yonason that's telling David. So Yonason is Zah, he's the mashpia. So it's the mashpia that has to induce and inspire the bittul and the makabel. David is malchus as his name b'chinas he'achroina. David is the final hay of the Shem Havaya. The Yonason, looking at his name, is Yud Kevav. If I'm mistaken, there's in Dalet B'chlal. Dalet B'chlal is malchus. Dal, receivers. We learned in the Memorim of Basi Dagani. And here Dalet Vav Dalet. There's a direct connection to the union of the hay. At any rate, David is malchus hey achroina. So Yonason is Yud Kevav Nosan. That's how the word breaks up. Giving over, transmitting Yud Kevav. Hainish B'chinas Yud Kevav, which is what the first three Oisias. Gimel Oisias Tishoyne Shem Havaya. So that B'chlal is B'chinas Zah. So Himshich V'Nosan Ashpa. So Zah, which is Yonason, is giving over B'chinas David b'bchinat David Melech Yisrael, in David, who is Melech Yisrael, which is Knesset Yisrael, Neshamis, he's being mashpia. How does it work? Shetchilas hashpaya lifel b'malchus b'chinas habitl. The first is that the mashpia has to be pearl in the makabel, the union of bittel, that the makabel should be a receptacle to receive. This is the Zeroik Mora B'Talmidim, that the teacher has to first cast the fear upon the Talmidim and put them in a state of receptivity and reception, and then it can be mashpia, then it can be even the mils b'dichas after that. But the natural state, by his presence, shouldn't have to be and artificially induced, is to invoke a sense of awe and bittul. So that's the first stage. And then comes the ashpa. What's the meaning of nosan? Giving. It's a principle in halacha. When you sell, it's the opposite. When you sell something in business, so we always have to assume that what's being sold is the minimum that can qualify for whatever is being sold here, the minimum. But in halacha, if someone gives a matana, the opposite. The assumption is, if you're giving a matana, then we will interpret that to be in the broadest possible manner. Because you're giving a gift. You're not going to give a gift stingily. Whoever gives with ayin yafa, so the interpretation of the gift in the language and in the commitment is in the broader sense. So this is Yohei Nasan, Shash, Inyan Amshachas Teisvis Eir. Teisvis Eir means that the makabel is not just going to get what he's missing. That's the burden of Fashish Tabbas V'Chesreinah. But the ashpa of what? Of even more than he's missing. Which is why why he has the mashpi in the first place. This is the union of, I guess, the union of Tainik. We'll see if this all fits in. Because so far we're kind of, at least I am, but this is Rosh Chodesh. That's Shabbos. Rosh Chodesh we're talking about is all Ishtalshalus. So we're going to see with Hashem tomorrow. With Hashem we'll learn it ahead and get a sense of what's coming. Looks very beautiful. Okay.